going to move into our actual chapter 1, talking about a few different important formulas that we are going to use. So first I'm just going to put a slide up here and let you write these down, and then we will go through and talk about each one. So we're going to be doing distance, midpoint, Pythagorean theorem. I'll let you write this down, then I'll talk through. So the first two, distance and midpoint, those are both referring to if you have two ordered pairs. So the first ordered pair being your x1, y1, the second ordered pair being x2, y2. So distance between them, you subtract your x's, square that, subtract your y's, square it, add them together and square root. That tells you how far apart those 2 points are. Midpoint is if you have a segment telling you the middle of that segment. And then Pythagorean theorem. When did we see Pythagorean theorem?
Triangle.
What kind of triangle? A right triangle, yep. So if you have a 90-degree angle, we have a right triangle. A and B just represent the legs of the triangle. Doesn't matter which is which, but C is your hypotenuse. That's the longest side, the side across from the right angle. So we just are going to practice using these 3 formulas. They're things that pop up every now and then, so we need to kind of have an idea of how to use them. When I ask you to find distance, I am never going to want decimals in here, so we'll just keep it in radical form, but make sure we reduce it as much as possible. So if I ask you to find the distance between the points, 3, -4, and 5, 4. And this is our x in the first, y in the first, x in the second, and y in the second. So our distance formula that we just wrote down and so we're just going to plug into this formula. Square root. My x2 is 5 minus 3, so we subtract our x's, square that. Y2 is 4 minus -4. So 5 minus 3 is 2. 4 minus a negative, so 4 plus 4 is 8. So if we square those, 4 plus 64 is 68. And then what do I need to check? At the end, what should we always check to see? Is 68 divisible by any perfect squares? You try your 4. Can you do 68 divided by 4? 4 and 17. So this one can break down. Square root of 4 is 2, so we get 2 radical 17. And that is our final answer. All right, any questions there? Let's look at this one. A right triangle has a hypotenuse of 13 and one leg of length 12. What is the length of the remaining leg? So, if I'm talking about a triangle, I'm probably going to draw a picture. Right triangle, so we have a right angle. The hypotenuse is the longest side, the one across from the right angle. That's 13. One of my legs was 12. So if I'm trying to find my other one, what formula do we use? So I get a squared plus 12 squared equals 13 squared. Now normally when you square root you have to add a plus or minus, but can a be a negative? No, because it's the length of the side, so it's got to be the positive. So my missing side is 5.
Does it matter which one you call A or not?
No, not at all. A and B can be
Okay.
Okay. I wouldn't give you guys a problem. Let's say we've dealt with radicals. We did it on our last test. I want you guys to take a second, look at this problem, see if you can figure it out. So a right triangle has legs of square root of 3 and 2 square root of 7. Find the hypotenuse. If I gave you the legs, which variables did I give you? A and B. So this time you're looking for the hypotenuse. So if you do square root of 3 squared plus b, 2 square root of 7 squared equals c squared. What is the square root of 3 squared? What is 2 radical 7 squared? Means 2 squared, which is 4. Square root of 7 squared is 7. So 4 times 7 is 28. 2 radical 7 squared is 28. If you put it in your calculator and you didn't do parentheses, it only squared the radical 7. So when you type it in your calculator, you have to do 2 square root of 7 with the square outside that. So it squares the 2, so you have to distribute the square to both. 2 squared is 4, square root of 7 squared is 7, and 4 times 7 is 28. Okay, 31, does that break down? No. So radical 31 is our hypotenuse. So your original sides might have radicals in them. Make sure you are carefully dealing with those as you work through. Any questions so far? Let's do a midpoint problem. So a midpoint is really just saying find the middle. Okay, you have some line segment. Okay, obviously, I'm not drawing this to scale at all, but you're just trying to find the point in the middle. Okay, if I ask you to find the middle of 2 numbers, what are you doing? If I said find the middle of 12 and 36, what would you do? Add them up and divide by 2. So that's exactly what we're doing. We're finding the middle of the x's, we're finding the middle of the y's. And that gives us an ordered pair. So this is like my x1, y1, x2, y2. So we have that midpoint formula I gave you, or you could just realize we're essentially just adding up and dividing by 2 because we're finding the middle. So if I add up my x's, negative 5 plus 3 divided by 2, average my y's, 5 plus 1 divided by 2. So negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2. Divided by 2 is negative 1. 5 plus 1 is 6. Divided by 2 is 3. So negative 1, 3 is the middle. Any questions there? So I'm going to ask a similar question, but I'm changing it around. I am giving you the midpoint and one of the two endpoints, and you are finding the second endpoint. So the first problem, I gave you both endpoints, you just had to find the middle. Second one, I'm going to give you the middle and the end, and you have to find the other end. And there are two different strategies for doing this. There's kind of an algebra way, and there's really just a reasoning way. Okay, so I'm going to show you both options, and you guys tell me what you like. If we think of it in the algebra sense, okay, here's my endpoint. My x1, y1. Okay, I don't know my second endpoint, right? So I'm trying to find this point. But I have the middle. So if you think about your midpoint formula, to find the middle, you add up your x's. So 8 plus x divided by 2, and it should equal the x value of the midpoint, which was 4. So saying we can add up those two x's, divided by 2, and it should equal 4. We multiply our 2 over, subtract the 8, we get our x is 0. Okay, then we do the same idea with our y's. So to find the midpoint of the y's, you add up your two y's, and divide by 2. So my y's, negative 20 plus y, divided by 2, should equal the y value of the midpoint, which was negative 4. So if I multiply my 2 over, add my 20, and we get 12. So the other endpoint had to be 0, 12. So I just used the formula, and it's all for a missing endpoint. Is everyone okay with that? The second option is more of just a logic thing. So if we think about, we have a segment, okay? My first endpoint started at 8. Then the middle was 4. Where would it end? So if you have 8, what do you have to add or subtract to get 4? You have to subtract 4 or add negative 4. So we do it again. So if I subtract 4 again, 4 minus 4 is 0. Is that the same thing we got for x when we did the algebra? Right, so if we think about our y's, we start at negative 20. The midpoint was negative 4. Where will it end? So if you have negative 20, what do you have to add or subtract to get negative 4? That's a negative 20. So we have to add 16. So if I do it again, negative 4 plus 16 is 12. And we get the exact same thing. So the first option is if you're more algebra minded. Second option is if you just want to kind of think through. How many of you like the algebra, setting up equations and solving? Okay, everybody likes just thinking through it? I want you guys to try one then. So one of my endpoints was -6, 12. Middle, 8, -2. We need to find the other end. If you are at -6, what do you have to add or subtract to get to 8? So we have to do it again. 8 plus 14, 22. If you're at your y's, 12, what do you have to add or subtract to get to -2? So you do it again. -2 minus 14, it's -16. I did see a couple people working it out the algebraic way, which is fine. So this is like your x1, y1. We need that other ordered pair. So if you did that, -6 plus x divided by 2 had to equal 8. For your y's, it would be 12 plus y divided by 2 had to equal -2. So if you solve them, multiply by 2. Add over your 6, you get your x to be 22. And your y to be -16. So, 2 options, same end result. You just have to be able to justify your answer somehow. Alright, are we having any trouble with this stuff? So this is really all that I have. I want you to work on, there's like a 6-question math Excel assignment. So you guys probably have enough time to get that done.